5 tools I love for engineering. Beyond Compare 4. Comparison software is built into other pieces of software, but Beyond Compare is just a piece of comparison software that just does what it does very well, and it takes it all to the next level. It is a very powerful piece of comparison software. You can compare entire folders very easily and be able to track exactly what is equal, what is not equal, and just go through entire folders and to be able to see what actually is different. If you have a set of images where one version is very different from another, you'll be able to see visually what that difference actually is inside of the actual software. And if you're merging two documents together, Beyond Compare is a very powerful piece of software to be able to actually merge two files together. And it's also not just for comparing files that are code or images, it's also very good for hex and even Excel files or tables. Pretty much anything you can throw at it that could be compared, Beyond Compare can just handle it. It does one thing, but it does it very well and is very powerful for doing it. Rider and JetBrains software. The Rider software gives you the ability to be able to code in C#, which is my main language. And inside that software, Git controls are built straight into the actual software so that you can actually control your Git repository without having to install anything else and be able to actually commit, discard, and actually control everything right from inside the actual interface. Rider also detects the naming standard you use as you program inside the software, or if you open up an existing project in it. So that way then it can recommend the correct names it thinks that you actually use. You can also fine tune this inside the settings, but it will detect what it thinks you should actually use, and most of the time it's correct. There's also powerful unit testing in here. I use unit testing a lot for Unity, and it is by far the best way to actually use Unity unit testing. The actual suggestions inside of Rider are also far better than anything else. There's a reason why other developers use ReSharpit, which is essentially the suggestions bit of Rider inside of Visual Studio. The interface also within inside of Rider is just pretty clean and clear. There's a reason why other developers use things like VS Code. People don't want a very cluttered environment to be able to code in. They want this very clean and clear environment to be able to see exactly what they need and nothing more. Obsidian. Obsidian is my go-to for planning, documenting and note-taking in all of my independent projects. It uses a text-based language called Markdown to format all of the documents. And what this means is that if at any point you do not agree with what Obsidian is doing, or at any point you want to be able to take all of these notes and remove them and put them into something else, you can do that. It's all text-based. Everything is very free and open. You can also embed diagrams directly into it. I use this to embed plant UML and UML diagrams straight into it. You can also extend the markdown language because there are plugins that you embed straight into Obsidian. And as it's just text and it is free to use, you can just upload what you actually have straight to GitHub and distribute what you actually have as notes straight out there. And because it's also text, people can read it. They might not be able to read it in the right format, but they should be able to read it. And if you really wanted to, you could use straight up Markdown, and then GitHub would be able to actually format it correctly because GitHub also supports Markdown as well. The editor itself is also just free as well. You could just use it and then just create vaults, upload them to GitHub on free GitHubs if you really want to, because it's just text. You're unlikely to reach the large file system limit. It is my go-to for making notes inside of my independent projects. GitHub Desktop. Sometimes you just want to be able to have a GitHub repository without having to run commands. GitHub Desktop is that application. It is a way to be able to run a GitHub repository without having to use any commands. You're able to actually create repositories, manage them, branch them, merge them, do whatever you actually need to do inside a repository without having to use any commands. You can commit things and discard things from the repository. You can manage and do everything you actually want to do. The only command I ever really run inside a repository is the large file system command, because sometimes you need it, and GitHub Desktop also helps you out there because you can actually go and grab the shortcut straight from inside GitHub Desktop, run that one command, and then forget about all the commands for the entire rest of the time. I'm not saying you shouldn't understand how Git works under the hood. You should. And I do have a blog post on exactly how it all works and what all these buttons actually do. But if all you want to do is just run a simple website for your portfolio, which I recommend you just do via GitHub if that's all you're doing, a little static website or a little bit of documentation. Doing so with commands and doing so with the console, it is not needed. Download GitHub Desktop, get yourself started, and start making things. Screen to GIF. Communicating your projects is not as simple as it seems, and static images usually don't cut it. This tool actually helps you get out what you actually need, which are short videos and GIFs, out to your audience in a very simple and effective way by just doing something that is small and effective and just doing it well. You just select the area that you want, add in a few options, and there are tools in there for editing, but not too many tools, because as previously stated, it is just small and effective and exactly what you need, but nothing more, nothing less. This tool has reduced the friction for me for sharing my progress on projects by just making it as simple as selecting the area I want to record, cutting it down to size, and then just sending it out to the world. Screen to GIF is quite possibly the best for free that I can possibly recommend to anybody. These are certainly not my only 5 tools, so please let me know if you have any you'd like to suggest down in the comments. And if any of these were useful, I'd also like to know as well. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you next time.